Good evening and welcome. It is Monday, December the 12th, 2022. And it's 6:30. So I'm going to call to order this meeting of the Burnsville Planning Commission. And tonight's Planning Commission meeting is being held in person as well as being held virtually by using Zoom. As chair of the Planning Commission, I'll be leading tonight's meeting, and the public's welcome to participate when requested throughout the meeting. Members of the public may attend the meeting in person or join via Zoom. As usual, tonight's meeting is available for viewing on BCTV. You could be doing that right now. We don't know. And on the city's website. If you're unable to participate this evening and would like to submit public testimonies, don't worry, you still can. You can just email your comments to city staff, or you can send a direct mail to City Hall. You may participate in tonight's meeting by going on to Zoom, and that's https://zoom.us/join, and typing in meeting ID 865-4051-3996. You would think I'd have that memorized by now, but I don't. Once you're logged into the meeting, please use the chat feature to tell the moderator which item you wish to speak to. If attendees experience problems, no worries. We suggest you leave the meeting and then rejoin. This usually fixes the issue. Additional instructions on how to participate are posted online at the Burnsville website. That's burnsvillemn.gov. in the public meeting calendar. You may also call into tonight's meeting, and that phone number is 651-372-8299. And again, you'd be using meeting ID 865-4051-3996 for each public hearing. I will open up a time where callers may speak to that item and give more instructions at that time. Your call will be muted until then. Please note that there may be a slight delay due to technology differences, so if you're on the phone, please turn down your computer or TV or whatever device you are using if there's a delay. Again, all this information plus our background and our agenda are online at burnsvillemn.gov public meeting calendar. With that, let's transition on to the agenda. You should have received a packet in email form. Any changes to the agenda, commissioners? Any changes, staff?
No changes.
No changes. I'd be looking for a motion. Commissioner Watt.
I move that we adopt the agenda.
Motion made by Commissioner Watt. Do I have a second? Commissioner Anderson.
I second.
Second by Commissioner Anderson. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And it passes. Our last meeting was November the 14th, 2022. You would have found meeting notes in our backup. Any changes to those meeting notes, commissioners? Seeing none, I change it over to staff.
No changes from staff.
No changes from staff. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? Commissioner Braddock.
Motion to approve the minute.
Motion made by Commissioner Braddock. Do I have a second? Commissioner Timmerman.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Timmerman. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And it passes. Item number 3 on our agenda is a public hearing. It's an application of Beton LLC for rezoning from GIM-GW, which is Gateway Industrial Medium, to GIM-GW/PUD. The plan unit development preliminary and final plat on one lot industrial subsection of to be known as Gateway at Cliff. Concept and development stage plan unit development and interim use permit for a period of 25 years for outdoor storage unit for commercial trucks located at 801 Cliff Road West. Here to present is one of our city planners, Sarah Madden. Sarah, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Planning Commissioners. So as mentioned in the title of this item, there are kind of a number of land use clearances associated with this application tonight, and it is the public hearing this evening. So the subject site that we're looking at here today, 801 Cliff Road West. So this is a, as mentioned in the title, currently zoned Gateway Industrial Medium. So it is within our Gateway Design Guidelines area as part of the implementation of the future Minnesota River Quadrant. So zoned GIM-GW and guided as Minnesota River Quadrant in the comprehensive plan. So the site itself is currently vacant, and it's right now in its current state, before being platted, just shy of 10 acres. Following the plat approval, it would reduce in size to about 5.8 acres. So the reason for that is some roadway dedication as right-of-way. So within the last year or so, there has been, and you've maybe already driven on it, a interchange improvements to Cliff Road and Interstate 35W, which has been a new roundabout that was installed, and then a kind of a reroute of Cliff Road to the south of the subject site where it previously went to the north. So as part of that project, the lot itself previously was dedicated as a roadway easement to the city for the construction of the road and for the use of the road. And as part of this application, it's being platted and dedicated as right-of-way. So the site itself, it's home to, or it was former home of Knox Lumber Company for many years. Right now, current state, no buildings on it. The last two buildings were, or three maybe, were demolished as part of the roadway project. But was used as this lumber company for from the 60s on into the early 2000s. Later had some interim use permit approvals for outdoor storage for off-site storage of vehicles for a local car dealership. But generally within the last couple of years that interim use permit was not renewed, and so those former approvals are no longer valid on the site since the use ceased. Moving on, so as mentioned, as part of this application, the applicant will be platting it into the current lot into one lot of Gateway at Cliff is the subdivision. So you can see here, as part of the roadway, the right-of-way dedication, the lot now has, it already had frontage on 3 different sides. It's now going to have frontage on all four sides. So what that means is that each property line is considered the front lot line. So in a commercial or industrial lot, anything that abuts a street right-of-way becomes the front yard. So as part of the application, there are a number of deviations that are requested, and I'll touch on these as we go through the plans later on in the presentation, but to list them now, key part of the approval is that there's a requested deviation to not, to allow a principal building to not be constructed on site for the interim use of outdoor storage. So outdoor storage is the listed interim use in the Gateway Industrial Medium Zoning District. The idea of that interim use is part of that long-term implementation of the Minnesota River Quadrant, that outdoor storage and outdoor sales related items would no longer be permitted at some point in the future when that Minnesota River Quadrant area, the quarry, things like that are phased out of use. But for this interim use permit for a outdoor storage for the commercial vehicles, the request is to not construct a building. This is something that this Planning Commission and City Council have recently reviewed as well for a similar request. So staff is supportive of that deviation request. Also included deviations, so there are 2 parking lot setback requests, the north property line and the south property line. So this would be to allow turning movements for the vehicles within the parking lot area. So a deviation request of 12 feet on the north property line and 17 feet on the south property line as opposed to the 20-foot requirement. There are also 2 deviations for green space. One is for the green space within the parking area, so parking lot islands, and then one is with the overall green space requirement from 30% to 26%. Again, these are similar to what the Planning Commission has viewed for similar uses in the zoning district, so there has been some consistency there with that request. The applicant is providing, and I'll mention it on the landscape plan, but landscape islands within to the internal part of the site, and those are heavily landscaped, kind of above what the ordinance would require. So staff is supportive of those deviations. And then a deviation which we're including here, typically a conditional use permit, but the ordinance requires that to utilize slats within a chain link fence, that's a conditional use permit in business and industrial districts. So that is included in this request as well. So land use and public benefits to the plan unit development approval. The site is vacant at the moment. The pavement's in disrepair. This proposal would be an upgrade to the site and the area to have some new pavement put in, some investment into the site. The proposal will add improvements to a site in the city that has limited development potential with its location across the street from the quarry operations. There's a kind of a dusty environment there, limited development potential due to that large truck presence and overall kind of quarry operations that are in close proximity. Another benefit is that as part of this proposal, the applicant is providing access to the site on the north property line, so that preserves this new road right-of-way on the south property line. There was, as part of the road project, the curb cut was created. There's the ability to have that access on the south. The applicant is proposing to not utilize it at this time with this land use and to direct their customers to the north existing entrance to the site. Reduce some of that conflict with anyone traveling in the new road and that right-of-way and frontage there. So the proposed interim use serves an identified need in the community for additional commercial truck parking, which is something that as city staff we hear a need for from residents pretty regularly, and it goes before the traffic safety committee often as well, which is an internal staff group. And then as far as exceeding ordinance requirements, the applicant is installing 12 deciduous shrubs in addition to the required tree installations, which exceeds our landscaping requirements. And the proposal includes a native seed mix for the majority of landscaped area on the property. So shown here is the demo plan for the application. So you can see kind of the existing conditions of the site. There are some existing water line, other utility lines that are being removed as part of that, and then removing kind of that existing bituminous pavement that's in disrepair, clearing some of that underbrush that's kind of grown up from the pavement in order to start fresh on the site. The site itself, the proposal is for 132 parking stalls that are sized to accommodate those commercial trucks and vehicles within that outdoor storage lot. And as mentioned before, it's a listed interim use, but other aspects of the request necessitate that PUD rezoning to plan unit development and the deviations involved, including that request to not construct a building, as well as the setback requests and landscaping. Some of the requests for the setback reductions are also related to the creation of a lot with 4 fronts and no side or rear yard, as well as some deviations, particularly on the south side. There is a provision within the city code for leniency when it's related to a road taking, a roadway improvement, that a setback could be considered at its previous state. And as part of this application, the applicant is actually shifting the parking lot, I keep pushing it forward, to the north. So the greater request for the deviation is on the north side with the existing previous Cliff Road frontage, whereas it's just a 17-foot as opposed to the 20-foot setback request on the south property line, which is where that leniency would have come into play as part of the road taking for the new roadway improvements. So they're limiting that request on the south end and asking for a 12-foot reduction on the north side instead, to shift that to the north and preserve the new boulevard that was constructed as part of the new roadway realignment. So this is the site plan for the property. You can see they're showing the turning movements for their vehicles to be able to access the site and move through it around the landscaping islands and then through the center pull-through spaces or to back into the spaces on the south property line. The site itself will be fully screened by fencing. The new fence to be installed around the west, east, and south side would be the proposed with the chain link with slats, and then the portions of the northern fence that is existing will be repurposed and connecting into the new fencing, as well as there'll be a new gate installed across the entrance, so it will be a gated and secured site. So shown here is the grading plan for the site. You can see in the northwest corner that there is a stormwater pond that is being installed for rate control, and you can see as well those 2 landscaping islands that I had mentioned before that are within the internal part of the site, as well as kind of that landscaping buffer when you first enter the site beyond the gated area. So shown here is the landscaping plan for the site. So as mentioned, there are areas, and you can see the small circles within both landscaping islands. So these are shrubs that are proposed to be installed. So the applicant is providing, in the landscaping ordinance, there are categories, and you can pick 3 of 4 to meet those for plant installations. So they are meeting 3 of the 4 categories and then going above and into the 4th category and providing shrubs that would not normally be required to kind of add that enhanced landscaping within the internal parking lot islands. And then you can see here that there's native seed mix surrounding the stormwater pond as well as on the seed mix for the property as a whole. So the requests for the reduction in for the deviations would be the overall landscaping from the 30% requirement for the zoning district to 26%. The applicant has indicated that this is what they could fit on the site in order to accommodate their established need for their business. And that is why they're requesting the 26%. And then with 4.5%, that's similar to a request that was recently approved that was for 3% for similar land use and property within the zoning district. And in this case, they are providing more internal parking lot kind of features in the property. So staff is supportive of those deviations. So shown here is the lighting plan, which is very hard to see on your PowerPoint screen, showing the illumination levels of the 4 light poles that are on the property that you can see kind of the red lines. So those points are where the light poles are to be installed for security on the site. So staff considerations related to this application, the proposed use of the commercial truck storage, that would be outdoor storage use, is an interim use. They are requesting a 25-year term for the interim use permits. That would be until December 2047. The applicant has indicated that they're installing security fencing and this gate, and there will be secure access to the site. Based on the proximity of their current operations, they feel that the site can function without a building. So in the applicant's narrative letter, they provided information showing that the majority of the stalls that are on the site will be used by their existing trucking company, which does operate locally, and that they had an identified need for additional storage for their employees and their employees' vehicles that they were utilizing outside of their main distribution facility. There will be spaces that will be available for rent that would be able to accommodate a need in the community, but the primary use is for a additional location for their business, which is, I believe, in Lakeville. So the PUD request outside of that interim use permit is to accommodate those deviations for no building, as well as the setbacks and landscaping, which would be similar to a recent approval that came through the Planning Commission and City Council process. The site itself in its current use is, currently inconsistent with the final objectives that are outlined in that gateway design guidelines for the Minnesota River Quadrant. However, staff feels that the proposed use is an interim solution due to those harsher area conditions related to kind of neighboring properties and some of those environmental qualities. As stormwater pond is proposed for the site improvements, there will be an agreement that will be entered into with the city that the engineering department will prepare. But the city feels, staff feels that with the conditions included, we're supportive of the request. So the recommendation listed here, we are recommending approval of the items with 7 conditions. So the first is that the interim use permit is subject to city code allowing the outdoor storage, but that it shall terminate on December 31st, 2047, or sooner if the outdoor storage area is removed and the business is no longer operating from the site. Second, that the outdoor storage area and parking facility is limited to commercial vehicles. No storage of equipment or materials will be permitted. Third, that no repair of vehicles, commercial vehicles, or tractor trailers is permitted on the site. Fourth, that no exterior signage be installed without issuance of a permanent sign permit. That exterior lighting be downcast and shielded on all faces. So those are 2 very standard conditions for the city. And then that all outstanding city engineering memo comments from the memo dated December 7th, which is attached to your Planning Commission report, be addressed adequately to the satisfaction of the city engineer, and that stormwater management agreement be executed and recorded prior to issuance of a building permit. So with that, staff is recommending approval of the application, and it's a public hearing this evening. I can stand for any questions if necessary, and members from the applicant team are in the audience as well.
Thank you, Ms. Madden. We also have Sarah Lloyd, one of our engineer consultants here as well, to field our staff questions. Commissioners, any questions for our staff on this? Commissioner Watt.
You mentioned the long-term development plans. What is the long-term development plan for this site or the area around this site? If you could remind me.
Yes, I can. That's a great question. So this particular site is lumped into the quarry kind of zone on the concept plan for the Minnesota River Quadrant and for the Gateway District. So generally that area, because the assumption is that at some point when they are no longer pumping water out from the mining operations, that would fill and be a lake. So these would be lakeside properties. So there is a mixed use vision. Areas in proximity to this are also kind of business office, campus, medical campus, things more technical. It's very vague in terms in that part of the comprehensive plan, but generally mixed use, but a focus on the commercial aspects and office campus type style development.
Thank you.
Yes.
Commissioner Wallace.
And just one quick question. You said it's going to be shielded by chain link fence. Is that just going to be similar to the other property where it's like 6 feet, I believe, with the slats?
Yes, it would be a 6 feet or a 6 foot fence is what they're proposing.
Thank you.
Commissioner Anderson.
What happens in 25 years if they don't want to get rid of that site? If they want to continue to keep using it and the city wants to do other things?
So let's say in 25 years, the applicant would have the ability to apply for an extension to their interim use permit if outdoor storage is still a listed interim use within the zoning district. If it is not a listed interim use, then the operations, they would be able to apply, but it may not be approved by the city council, so it may be up to them. We can't preempt a future council on their vote. It will be zoned as a planned unit development, so they may be able to approach it from that angle to continue the use, but it will be based on the zoning district at that time. If it's still zoned gateway industrial medium or whatever zoning district that may be created as we get closer to that Minnesota River Quadrant final execution of that land use plan, the site will be bound to the zoning of that district at the time.
Thanks.
Commissioner Timmerman.
A couple questions. One is, we've looked at a few of these projects lately where we've had storage for larger vehicles, commercial vehicles, and a couple things that really didn't come to mind previously but just did are what, I guess, has the city talked about or thought about if people choose to live in their vehicles while they're parked there? Because a lot of semi trucks have living facilities built right on board. I don't see any consideration of that. There's certainly not sanitary facilities or anything on site. So I guess, is there anything within city code prohibiting that? Because I would not want to see that in one of these areas. And then the second question I had was about snow removal. Presumably these trailers will collect a lot of snow during the winter time. And one of the things that I think we could consider going forward is building in some sort of snow removal system or tool, which is not uncommon at truck parking facilities. It would just add a safety benefit when the trailers are coming out during the winter time.
Okay, so I'll answer the first part of your question. So the listed use for outdoor storage is just for the storage and the parking of the vehicles. So a truck stop or a truck terminal type of use is a different listed use under the zoning ordinance, and it is not listed in this zoning district, and it's not what is being applied for. So the use that they are bound to and that the code enforcement would interpret is the outdoor storage use in the parking of the commercial vehicles. So that's what is approved as part of this and as part of recent applications as well. So the intent is not to be utilized as maybe a typical truck stop that you may see in other areas. The applicant in their narrative letter did speak a little bit to this on how they plan to function the site, that it is meant to be for their, let's say, their employees, or whether they have a tenant for a space, that the semi-truck, let's say the trailer truck, is parked there for longer periods of time, and then when they are working, then maybe their personal vehicle is parked there while their work vehicle is out on the road, they're completing their job. But the use of it as maybe a truck stop type of facility is not the intent of the listed use or the description of the use in the narrative letter from the applicant. For snow storage, I don't know that it's identified on the plans in this location. I might defer that question to the applicant if they have a plan for like snow removal on the property or anything like that.
I saw something on one of the plans in the packet where snow storage was available, but yeah, I can
Yes.
kind of defer that question to the applicant then.
So this is the site plan. They are showing snow storage here on the eastern part of the site.
Yep.
But if they have a snow removal plan, I would defer to them and when they have a moment to speak.
Great, thanks.
Any other questions, commissioners? One question I had was, you had mentioned road maintenance, and it just popped in my head that there are 4 front sides to this property, so how does that work as far as billing, et cetera, on road maintenance on a property like this one?
I do not have the ability to answer that question.
Okay.
And I don't believe our engineering consultant is involved with that portion of our operations here from an assessment standpoint or things like that. So I don't have the ability to speak to that.
Okay. I was just curious, just a thought. And then Ms. Lloyd, there was a list of items on there that had to be satisfied. Was everything satisfied? No.
I believe there's one item yet that is pretty minor aside from the stormwater management agreement, which really comes at this point now. So everything looks good on our end.
Good deal. Perfect. With that, if there's no other questions from the commission, I'd like to call up the applicant. Musafar? I'll get it. I'll keep practicing. We'll get there. Welcome.
Not a common name.
If you could just say your name and state your address for the record and tell us a little bit about the company.
Yep, my name is Muzaffar Gaffarov. I'm president of Globus Transport, Inc. We're a trucking company based in Lakeville, Minnesota. We just happened to develop our facility there just a few years ago. 2018 is when we moved in. And so we operate out of Lakeville, constantly running into issues with expanding our, trailer fleet and needing, truck trailer fleet needing more parking space, and it's been a nationwide problem actually, like lately. So opportunity popped up for a site in Burnsville, and we had an initial meeting, kind of got favorable response, and so we went ahead for it. Strategically, it's a great location for us. It's much more centrally located than Lakeville is, and would love to be here. And as far as to address your questions, it's definitely not planning to be like a truck stop. That's why we're not proposing any like buildings. Basically, so the idea is for the driver, when they're ready to hit the road, over the road, they would drive their personal car to site, park it in lieu of their truck, and then go work and then come back in a week or two and then basically pick up their personal vehicle and go. So, the idea is not to have anyone camp out or live in the truck on the parking lot. Yeah. It's just to satisfy, people need place to park their trucks, a safe place where it's allowed, so.
How does the snow removal work? Commissioner Timmerman had that question.
Snow removal, I guess, you mean from the site
Yeah.
itself? Like, I guess, like as far as I would know, we'd probably just push it to that east side, like to the snow storage area. It seems pretty straightforward to me, again, I'm not sure if we currently have our own Bobcat at our Lakeville facility, but it's a little bit smaller as far as the parking area. So, we might have a contractor that's gonna be doing this, but yep.
That's fine. Commissioner Timmerman.
The question I'm really asking is more about the snow accumulation on the top of trailers.
On top of
I mean,
trailers.
presumably you'll get 2-3 feet of snow if a truck's parked there long enough during the winter time. And I've seen facilities like this that have some sort of bar that scrapes the snow off as a trailer leaves the facility. I'm not asking this question specifically for you or to hold up your project, but this is maybe the third, maybe even fourth project similar that we've seen. And it just seems to me that close to the freeway, it would be wise to ensure that the drivers are clearing the snow off for safety concerns in the community.
Yep. To be honest with you, like we haven't really had such a long periods of time that the trailers sit that they accumulate as much snow. A lot of times, basically, like I don't know a whole lot of trucking companies that have those, equipment or the instruments to remove this. I know what you're talking about. It's like, I think they put up a couple of rail in the beams and then like a rail that goes ups and down.
Yep.
But I haven't seen a whole lot of trucking companies that actually install those. Probably for the reason like that we actually haven't really had a need to remove snow from our trailers that I remember, like maybe I can, just handful of times where would have to jump up on the roofs and actually use shovels because there was a large accumulation of snow. But I know there's a big FedEx terminal that's right down the street from us. I don't think they use anything it's just those trailers, they don't sit as much. They move, so it's not like they accumulate as much snow as it is on the ground, so.
Yeah, maybe it's a perceived problem that doesn't really exist.
Yeah, again, we can look into this. I can't speak on the costs of the installing of this, sort of equipment, like snow removal from top of the trailers, but we haven't really had a need for it. And we've been doing this, I had this company started in 2010, so it's been 12 years that we've been okay. And we wouldn't send a truck out, with snow on the, like a lot of snow on the roof that's going to be falling on other cars, so we, yeah.
Well, good, thanks.
Any other questions for the applicants, commissioners? I don't see any. Okay, with that, well, thank you so much for joining us. And
Thank
really
you.
appreciate you
Yep.
speaking to that item. This is a public hearing. It is 7:01, so I'm going to open up the public hearing. Anybody from the public is welcome to join us if you're on Zoom. You can let the moderator know that you are speaking to this issue, or if you called by phone, you dial *6 and unmute yourself. And I don't see a whole lot of people running to the podium. Still have yet to see that happen. One of these times it's going to happen. And it says nobody's on Zoom. So at 7:02, I will close the public hearing. It is 7:02 now. With that, I will turn it back to our commissioners for discussion and maybe motion. Commissioners. We get a lot of blank stares. Come on, guys. Commissioner Anderson.
I mean, I would just like to say, I think it's a pretty good use of the space. The idea that it's possibly a temporary space, if there's things happening in the future, it's a great way to take advantage of it now and not just leave it vacant or anything like that. Company's based in Lakeville, nice neighbor, so it's good to be neighborly to everybody. So yeah, I mean, I support this idea, and if I can, I'd like to make a motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Anderson. Anyone have objections to him making a motion? The floor is yours, Commissioner Anderson.
I would like to, awesome, make a motion that we recommend to the City Council approval of the rezoning of GIM-GW to GIM-GW/PUD concept and development stage planned unit development preliminary and final plat and interim use permit subject to the following 7 conditions.
Okay, a motion has been made. Do I have a second? Commissioner Braddock.
I'll second the motion.
Second by Commissioner Braddock. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Hearing none, that passes unanimously. That will put it on the consent agenda and will be on the consent agenda for the city council meeting next Tuesday, which I believe, if I do my math correctly, is the 20th at 5:30 in these very chambers. Thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate you giving Burnsville a try. Maybe you move up here. We don't know. I'll keep trying until you do. With that, yeah, thank you.
Appreciate staff's work too, and enjoy working with them.
They're good people, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
I really appreciate them too. Thank you. With that, we'll move on to our next item on the agenda. That is updates. Any updates, Commission? Seeing none, I'm going to turn to staff.
Yes, so your next planning commission meeting will be next year on January 9th. As we kind of briefly mentioned earlier and at the last meeting, if you want to have a winter gathering that sometimes happens for members of the Planning Commission, let Kevin or I know and we can notice it. It does not have to be after your Planning Commission meeting, but if it's easier, it can be. And we can just note that there will be an informal gathering, no official business for members of the Planning Commission to have a social gathering. So we can notice that. And then kind of our main update this evening. So we're joined tonight by Jeff Thompson, who is our new Community Development Director. So Jeff started in October. If you read The Sun this week, he was on page 3. So, and then I'll just...
Got work to do.
I'll actually invite Jeff up to either podium, and if you want to give a quick introduction.
Again, thank you, Sarah. Thank you, and good evening. So, yeah, my name is Jeff Thompson. I'm super excited to be in Burnsville. It's already been like 2 months, actually. It's been 60 days I've been here, and time is flying by as I learn a lot about what's happening in Burnsville. And I don't have to tell you this, but there is a lot going on and a lot to come up to speed in terms of active projects, current projects, but also a lot of the economic development and planning and strategy discussions happening for longer term investment and reinvestment in Burnsville. So I'm really excited to be here. I can give you as much information. I can give you a whole lecture if you want, but I know you're serious. So if you have questions, happy to answer any questions on my background or what my work ahead in Burnsville may involve. So
Any question, Mr. Thompson?
Just welcome aboard.
thank you. Thank you. I worked in a planning role for a number of years, working with planning commissions. So I know I've always enjoyed it, and so thank you for your work for Burnsville. And if there's anything I can do to assist you in your role as a commissioners, feel free to reach out. And I'm sure we'll certainly see you around as I'm active in the organization.
Well, I can tell you, we love working with your staff. They're great people, and we really appreciate all the work they put in. And we're excited to work with you as well. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Any other updates?
There are no other updates.
All right. With that, it brings us to number 5 on our agenda. And unfortunately, Commissioner Wallace is an alternate today.
We got to stay here all week then.
We're here all week.
I want to see page 3 here.
Yes, a big article.
It's a good picture too.
Commissioner Wad,
I move that we adjourn. Was that the next?
that's the next item on the
Yes.
agenda. Yes, that's right. Adjournment. Commissioner Anderson.
I'll second that.
And we have a motion by Commissioner Wad to adjourn, second by Commissioner Anderson. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That goes. Thank you for joining us. Have a great night.